Hey everybody, welcome to my channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. I hope you're doing well. I have a very easy project for you today. So if you're a beginner, you're going to love today's tutorial. We're going to be making this beautiful amethyst and Czech glass necklace. As you can see, it has a toggle clasp on the front with a lovely pendant hanging below. And I'm going to teach you how to make beaded components using wire and a wrap loop technique. So if you've never done that before, don't worry, because I'm going to show you step by step how to do it. And we're going to be using the beads that came in Sam's bead box for the month of February. Now, if you've never heard of Sam's bead box, I'll leave some information down below in the description section of this video, along with a link to the website and a coupon code in case you're interested. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Here we have Sam's bead box for the month of February 2024. As you can see, the name of the box is Amethyst Allure, and I did publish an unboxing video, and if you haven't seen it, I'll link it down below. But anyway, this box was spectacular, it really was. I fell in love with it the minute I opened it up. It contained gorgeous amethyst beads, as well as some freshwater cultured pearls, and of course lots of lovely Czech glass beads as well. But when I saw those beautiful amethyst rondelles, I knew I had to use them. Same thing with the amethyst smooth rounds. And I couldn't resist the bronze-colored Czech glass beads. And if I had it my way and if I had time, I would probably use up the entire box. But today we're just going to make a necklace. So let me show you the beads and materials we're going to be using for today's project. Here are the beads I'm going to be using. Now this one here is going to be a pendant, but I'm going to use the other ones for the strands. And I'm saying strands, but we're actually only going to build one strand today. One very long strand. And you'll have to excuse my voice, I'm getting over a cold. So I'm sounding a little hoarse, unfortunately. But anyway, let me go over the sizes with you. Let's start with the top row. These are Czech glass heart leaf beads, and they measure 10.5 by 16.5 millimeters, and the color is bronze. The box came with 4 of them, and we're going to use all 4. These are called rectangle flower beads, and they measure 8 by 20 millimeters, and the color is bronze as well. And these are called Tablecut Starburst square beads. The color is purple, opal, bronze, and they measure 10 millimeters. The box came with 5. We're going to use all 5 of them. These are amethyst smooth rounds, and they measure 6 millimeters across. And we actually received a very long strand, but I have about 16 of them here. And this focal bead is a table cut sun coin bead. The color is purple amethyst with Picasso, and it measures 18 millimeters across. And these are faceted amethyst rondelles, and the size actually wasn't listed. So let me go ahead and measure one. It looks like it measures almost 7 millimeters across. But anyway, these are all the beads. Let me show you what else we'll be using today. I'm going to be using some craft wire, and this one's 24 gauge. And the reason I'm using 24 gauge is because the amethyst rondelles have very small holes, and 24 gauge barely fits. Normally for wrap loops, I like to use 22 gauge, but I think 24 gauge is fine as well. The beads aren't that big or heavy. And here I have a toggle clasp and 2 jump rings. The ring portion of the toggle clasp measures 13 millimeters across, and the jump rings measure 5 millimeters. And as you can see, they're all in a copper color. I was going to use bronze, but then I changed my mind because even though the beads are bronze colored, the copper metal actually looked better. Let me just show you what I mean. Here are some of the beads. And here's a bronze colored toggle clasp. And I'm not sure if you can see it because of my lights, but to me, the copper looks a little bit better. But you could potentially use bronze if you wanted to. But anyway, now that we've gone over the materials, let's go ahead and get started. The first thing we're going to do is to figure out the sequence of beads and how we're going to connect them. And that can be a little challenging sometimes, especially if you're a beginner, because we have a whole lot of different sizes and shapes. So what I usually like to do is to alternate the colors and the shapes as well. But I'm also going to alternate between gemstones and Czech glass beads. So there's a lot to consider. But let me just go ahead and start with the gemstones. I'm thinking about grouping them in sets of 2. So I'm going to have 2 rondelles on one piece of wire and 2 smooth rounds on another piece of wire. And I'm going to alternate between rondelles and smooth rounds when I build the strand. I know it's a little bit confusing, but I'll show you in just a few moments how I'm going to do that. Now these 2 beads are very similar in color, but these are not. But I still need to figure out a way to incorporate them into a pattern so it looks somewhat structured. Let me go ahead and start with the large beads. And now I think I'm going to add one of these, and then one of these, and again one of these, and one of these leaf beads. So this is basically how I'm going to arrange these beads. Something like this. The next one will be one of these rectangle beads on this side. Let me just move this up a little bit so you can see better. So as you can see, I'm alternating between a bronze bead and a square bead because the square beads are a bit of an amethyst color, so they're a little different. But in addition to that, I'm also alternating between a leaf bead and a rectangle bead. So there are actually two things happening here. So this is how I'm going to lay out the large beads, but now I need to figure out how to incorporate these amethyst beads. So I think what I'll do is I'll start with a set of rondelles on this side, and I'm not going to have room, so let me just remove these for the time being and move these down a little bit. Now when I first started designing this project, I realized I wasn't going to have enough of the amethyst rondelles, which is why I decided to incorporate the smooth rounds. So the next set's going to be some smooth rounds, and I'm going to use 2 of them. And now some rondelles in this space. And now some smooth rounds. And some rondelles. And so on and so forth. I hope that makes sense. And this is how I'm going to build the entire necklace, using this exact same sequence until I get the length that I want. And I'm thinking today's necklace will be about 20 inches long, but obviously you can make yours as long as you want, as long as you have enough beads. But anyway, guys, I hope this was helpful. This method gives you some idea of how to create patterns and how to work with beads of different colors and shapes and sizes. So to continue this, I would add a square bead over here, for example. And then over here, I'm going to add 2 smooth rounds. And then a square bead. And so on and so forth. So now that I have some idea of how I'm going to do this, let's go ahead and get started. I have a piece of 24 gauge wire. I like to work with long pieces, especially when I'm using beads of different sizes. And actually, when I'm working by myself off camera, I work directly from the spool just to save wire. But that's just my recommendation. If you're a beginner, I recommend that you cut yourself individual pieces of wire just to make things easy. And you're going to need quite a bit because we're going to be doing some wrap loops. So I would say anywhere between 2.5 and 3 inch pieces, depending on the size of the beads. For these larger ones, I may even use a 4-inch piece. Another factor is the size of your loops. And today, since I'm using 24 gauge wire, I'm actually going to make small loops. I find the small loops are a little bit stronger than larger loops with this gauge wire. But anyway, using some round nose pliers, I'm going to grab the wire about, I would say, maybe 1.25 inches down, something like that. And now I'm going to kink it. Switch to this part of the wire. And now take the tail and wrap it around the nose of the pliers. Flip the pliers around. Continue to wrap to the back. So now I have a loop, and as you can see, it's not very big. Whenever I create my loops, I like to grab the loop like this with some skinny pliers. These are actually crimping pliers, but I like using them because they have skinny tips. And now with another set, I'm going to grab the tail, and I'm going to create a couple of wraps. You can do more wraps if you want to. It's up to you. Using flush cutters, I'm going to snip off the excess. And you definitely want to tuck in that little tail. Let me go ahead and start with some smooth rounds, I think. Let's see where the hole is. There it is. And now another one. So here are both of them. I'm going to use my round nose pliers again, and I'm going to grab the wire right above the bead, like this, line up the bottom loop, bend the wire, Switch to this part, wrap the tail around the nose, flip the pliers around, continue to wrap to the back. Once again, I'm going to grab the loop with my skinny pliers. And actually, let me straighten this one out. This one got bent a little bit. And I want to make sure that it's facing the same direction as the other one. I'm going to snip off the excess, grab the tail, and do my wraps. And now let me go ahead and snip off this bit and tuck in that little end. So there's my first beaded component. And now let me go ahead and build another one. I'm going to grab the wire again about 1.25 inches down, or maybe an inch, it's up to you. Switch to this part, wrap the tail around the nose, flip the pliers around, continue to wrap to the back. And again, if you're a beginner, I recommend more than 1 inch, guys, just to make things easy. I know it's a bit of a waste, but it's better to have enough so you don't get frustrated. And now I'm going to open up this loop and I'm going to insert it into the loop of this component, like this. I'm going to grab it with my skinny pliers, and with my other pliers, I'm going to grab the tail and do a couple of wraps. Cut off the excess. Tuck in the little sharp end. And now I'm going to load the next bead like this. Grab the wire above the bead, line up the bottom loop. And if you'll notice, I'm grabbing it with the tip of my pliers, and that's because the wire is very thin. So when I go to do my 2 wraps, I want to make sure that the space is adequate. You don't want a lot of space there. Let me bend the wire, wrap the tail around the nose, flip the pliers around, continue to wrap to the back. Grab the loop with my skinny pliers, grab the tail, and do a couple of wraps. Let me line up my loops. Snip off the excess. Tuck in the little end, if you see one. And that's what we have so far. If you'll notice, I have just enough space for those 2 wraps, and that's why I use the tip of my pliers. So depending on the gauge of your wire or how many wraps you make, you need to leave yourself enough space. So now I have 2 components. Let me just pick up these bits of wire. And let me move this up a little bit. Now, since I started with smooth rounds, the next set's going to be the rondelles. I have another piece of wire here. Once again, I'm going to grab it 1 inch down or 1.25 inches down, bend it, switch to this part, wrap the tail around the nose, flip the pliers around, continue to wrap to the back. I'm going to open up this loop, insert the component into it, like this. Grab the loop, grab the tail, do a couple of wraps. Snip off the excess. Tuck in the little end. And now I'm going to load 2 of the rondelles. And this one actually has very, very tiny holes, so I can't use it, unfortunately. But this one's okay, and so is this one, hopefully. It just barely fits. But there they are. And now let me grab the wire at the top of the bead. Line up the bottom loop, bend it, switch to this part, wrap the tail around the nose, flip the pliers around, continue to wrap to the back. Grab the loop, snip off the excess, grab the tail and do my wraps. Let me make sure my loops are lined up. Snip off the excess and tuck it in. So now I have 3 beaded components. And that's basically it, guys, but let me do one more with you. I'm going to go ahead and grab the wire, and I'm actually going to grab it at 1 inch down because I don't have very much wire here. Bend it, switch to this part, wrap the tail around the nose, flip the pliers around, continue to wrap to the back, open up this loop, slide this component into it, grab the loop. I don't have much of a tail there, but I think I can do it. I just need to do 2 wraps, so I should be fine. But it is more challenging, like I said before. But the more you do it, the easier it gets. And now let me snip off the excess. And now let me tuck in that little sharp end. So now I'm going to go ahead and add a leaf bead. Like that. Grab the wire at the tip like this. Bend it. Switch to this part. Wrap the tail around the nose. Flip the pliers around. Continue to wrap to the back. Grab the loop. Grab the tail and do a couple of wraps. Let me line up my loops. Snip off the excess. And now let me tuck in that little sharp end. And now we have 4 components. And by the way, I don't think I told you the name of the color of this wire. The color is actually hematite. I really love this color. It's really, really pretty. And it goes well with dark beads. But anyway, this is basically how I'm going to do the entire necklace. So the next set of beads will be 2 smooth rounds, and then a square bead, and then 2 rondelles, and then one of these rectangular beads, and so on and so forth. And it's the same thing over and over. Very, very simple. So I'm going to keep building these components and connecting them until I get the length that I need, and then I'll come back and show you how to attach the clasp and how to make the pendant. So I'll see you in a few moments. Well, I'm back, and as you can see, I connected all my beaded components, and I did make a little change. If you'll notice at the top of the necklace, I added some extra 6mm beads, and I did that mostly because I didn't have enough of these square beads. Plus, having the smooth rounds at the back of the neck would be a little bit more comfortable. And as I was connecting them, I decided that I would make it symmetrical. So on this side, the leaf beads are pointing down, and on this side, they're pointing down as well. Of course, you could do yours any way you want to. But anyway, I really like the way this necklace turned out so far. So let me show you exactly how I did this. Let me go over the sequence with you. I started with 6mm beads at the bottom, and then a leaf bead, and then the rondelles, a square bead, 6mm beads, a rectangle bead, rondelles, a square bead, 6mm beads, a leaf bead, rondelles, and then 5 sets of 6mm beads at the top. And then I repeated the exact same sequence on this side. So if you want to take a screenshot, now would be a good time to do it. But anyway, now we're going to build the pendant. So let me put this necklace off to the side for the time being. There's the focal bead, a square bead, a rondelle, and I did pull out one of the 5 polished beads from the box. This one measures 5mm in size, and the color is bronze. I'm going to use a ball head pin, and here's some more wire. This is 24 gauge. Let me start with a smaller bead. I'm going to go ahead and load this 5mm bead first, and now this rondelle, like this. I'm going to grab the pin with my round nose pliers, bend it, switch to this part of the pin, wrap the tail around the nose, flip the pliers around, continue to wrap to the back, and just like before, I'm going to grab the loop, and with these pliers I'm going to grab the tail, and I'm going to do a couple of wraps. Cut off the excess. Let me straighten out my loop a little bit and tuck in that little tail, that little end. You definitely don't want anything sharp sticking out. So there's the bottom of the pendant, and I'm going to use my 24 gauge wire. Once again, I'm going to grab it about 1 inch down or 1 1/4 inches. Switch to this part of the wire, wrap the tail around the nose, flip the pliers around, continue to wrap to the back. I'm going to open up this loop, slide this component into it, like that. Grab the loop, grab the tail, do a couple of wraps. Snip off the excess. Tuck in the little sharp end. Slide the next bead on, like this. Grab the wire with my round nose pliers. Line up the bottom loop. Bend the wire, switch to this part, wrap the tail around the nose, flip the pliers around, continue to wrap to the back. Grab the loop, snip off the excess, grab the tail and do a couple of wraps. Let me make sure my loops are lined up. And now let me cut off the excess. Tuck in the little sharp end. Let me straighten out my loop a little bit. And now we're going to go ahead and add this one, but now I'm going to get the toggle clasp. So here it is. I have the toggle clasp and 2 jump rings. Once again, I'm going to grab the wire an inch down, something like that. Bend the wire, switch to this part, wrap the tail around the nose, flip the pliers around, continue to wrap to the back, open up the loop, slide the component into it, like that, grab the loop, grab the tail, do a couple of wraps, snip off the excess, tuck in the little sharp end, slide this bead on like this. Doesn't that look pretty? I think it looks really pretty. I'm going to grab the wire at the top of the bead, line up the bottom loop, bend it. Now this time I'm going to make a super large loop because I need to be able to slide the toggle ring into it. So I'm going to slide the wire down the barrel like this to the thickest part. And now let me open this up and slide my ring into it. Hopefully it'll fit. I think it does. And now I'm going to grab that loop the best way I can, like this. Grab the tail and do a couple of wraps. Cut off the excess. Tuck in the little sharp end. So now the pendant is finished. Isn't that beautiful? I think it's so pretty. Here's my necklace. Let me go ahead and open up one of these jump rings. Slide the pendant into it, or the toggle ring I should say, like this. Slide this end of the necklace into the jump ring, close it up. You want to make sure you close your jump rings really well when you're using 24 gauge wire. So now this end is finished. Let me open up this jump ring now. Slide the bar portion of the toggle clasp into the jump ring, like this. And now the necklace. And close up the jump ring. And let me show you how this works. I'm just going to use this toggle clasp like you normally use a toggle clasp, even though it has a pendant hanging from it. And here's my beautiful necklace. I think it turned out really nice, and I hope you like it as well, and I hope you can make your own. And as always, I'd like to go ahead and model it for you, so stick around for that. Thank you so much for watching. I'm looking forward to seeing you again. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time. Bye.